on May 24, 2010. Since her appointment as the Minister of Public Administration, she has been spearheading the transformation of the public service of Trinidad and Tobago. Her engineering background and experience with quality assurance have enabled her to achieve a heightened level of focus in the ministry in terms of its key transformation initiatives and in the design of a holistic approach to continuous improvement. The Joint Select Committee reviewing a range of public matters. She currently serves on the Joint Select Committee Group 1. The minister was the deputy political leader of the Congress. She was elected as the party's chairman. Mrs. Seepersad-Bachan has served on the boards of several companies and was the chairman of the National Petroleum Marketing Company of Trinidad. In welcoming to the podium the Minister of Public.
Mr. Wade Mark, His Excellency Gerard Latulippe, High Commissioner for Canada to Trinidad and Tobago, and other representatives of the mission, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Public Administration, Mrs. Gillian McIntyre, and I know our two Deputy Permanent Secretaries are also here, Mr. Richard Madre and Mrs. Prabha Miraj, representatives of CEDA, a special welcome to Trinidad and Tobago, our Clerk of the House, Ms. Jacqueline Sampson. Very important here this morning, a special welcome to you, Permanent Secretaries, Deputy Permanent Secretaries, senior public officers of our neighboring countries right here in the region. Let me invite you once more, welcome you here today in Trinidad and Tobago, and to thank you for inviting me to participate in this leadership development program funded by CEDA, executed by the Canada School of Public Service and hosted by the Cave Hill School of Business of the University of the West Indies. CEDA has been an extremely good friend and partner of the entire Caribbean and has again demonstrated its willingness to help us help ourselves and one another. I am extremely intrigued by the topic of today's session: leadership and valuing diversity. What leaps out at me as I look around this room is that the guests or participants here today are public sector leaders from the different countries of our English-speaking Caribbean. Many people on the outside think of the Caribbean as a homogeneous society, which speaks the same language and are solidly linked by a common culture. Until you get closer, it is difficult to understand that small though we are all sovereign states, which jealously guard and protect our sovereignty. Despite these political differences, we have a lot in common. We have a rich heritage on which to build a successful and sustainable common future. All too often, we get carried away on the wings of insularity and parochialism and lose sight of the fact that we have considerably more in common than we have in differences. In the context of leadership and valuing diversity, let me make some points that underlie public service renewal and the importance of developing leaders who cross the natural border of the Caribbean Sea and the man-made divisions of states and countries to create a new domain of public service leadership that spans the narrow frontiers and limitations of time, space, and national identity. First of all, we all emerged from a colonial experience where the civil service, as it was called then, was an arm of the British government and under the control, for the most part, of British managers. One observation of the time is that we tried so hard to be like our overlords that we adopted the same postures and behaviors. Our civil servants were described as being neither civil nor servants. An ongoing concern is that while independence brought with it the need for national public services, the changes in attitudes and behaviors. It's very interesting to hear Dr. Batiste talk about attitudes and behaviors. These attitudes and behaviors did not occur to the extent that was expected by the population. This is part of the challenge of renewal and transformation. What we have a lot in the region are governments. What we do not have enough of is governance. The World Bank defines governance as the manner in which power is exercised in the management of a country's economic and social resources for development. All governments have power, but how that power is used is important. First of all, and how that power is exercised is important, and in whose name is what governance is about. In this sense, governance is a neutral concept, distinct from politics, comprising the complex mechanisms, processes, relationships, and institutions through which citizens and groups articulate their interests, exercise their rights and obligations, and mediate their differences. In other words, good governance is citizen-centric and addresses the allocation and management of resources objectively. It is characterized by participation, transparency, accountability, rule of law, effectiveness, and equity. What is becoming more apparent is that there is no longer important what is accomplished, but in the how it is accomplished. It is not about how many roads we build or what roads we build, but how we build those roads. It's important that every speaker here this morning alluded to trust and credibility. If we are to rebuild that trust, that credibility in the public service and in you as public service leaders, then the onus is on you, public service leaders here today, and the future generations of leaders that you must develop to put in place the governance structures that will be so firmly entrenched that will survive any change in governments. You will agree with me. The existing governance frameworks are therefore not effective. The second is that we are all citizens of our own countries, but we are also CARICOM nationals. The Caribbean community is a grouping that is yet to serve its purpose of bringing all of us together through common systems of government, through governance mechanisms that are transparent and objective, and values that are shared. Caribbean unity might be a work in progress, but the common complaint is that it is taking far too long. Interestingly, this is also a criticism that is common to attempts by the nations of the region to renew or transform their public services. The newspapers and humorists are having a field day now over a trade war between Jamaica and Trinidad over toilet paper. It seems that there is a regulatory problem, as there was in the recent cement matter, which went to court. However, what both teach us is that if we have a problem with the ease of doing business right here in the region, how can we compete globally? Today, with the growth of the service industry, new opportunities emerge for each and every one of us individually and collectively as countries within this region to increase our participation in the global competitive environment. However, every survey has shown that the public service is the biggest impediment nationally and regionally to the ease of doing business in this region. Clearly, it is an area where leadership is lacking. The third is that when we come together in events like today, we realize that we are one people. Despite history and geography, and regardless of race and religion, there is one and only one Caribbean. All of us share and delight in certain common characteristics. We are bright people and express ourselves well. We are compassionate people and feel for others. Yet, we can also be formal, rigid, and place too much value on the possession of the office instead of the performance of its functions. Ease of doing business is an example, but there are many others which I would like to see explored within this workshop session, Madam Chair. Our countries individually and collectively have made a huge impact on the culture of the world, on sports, on entertainment, through our writers and artists, yet we are unable to do it successfully, as consistently, and as completely in the spheres of public service and business development. The question is, why? Despite the negatives, I am an eternal optimist. I am positive and have reason for hope in both public service transformation and in the sustainable development of our region. The program in which you are participating can and will contribute substantially to develop the future leaders that we need, the structures in which they will work, and the public service organizations that they lead. When we West Indians come together for a single purpose, there is a natural synergy that develops. It is the reason why a small group of countries with a tiny talent base was able to dominate the cricket world through their shared talent and togetherness. On the other hand, it is also why we were not able to stay at the pinnacle of world cricket. The playing talent was not adequately supported by the administrative structures. The lack of foresight and forward planning meant that our stay at the top of the game was brief and the aftermath was bitter. I know that with time, effort, and better governance, the West Indies will rise again. It is the same hope that I have in our future as a grouping and as individual nations. This is why I want to share with you. I want to share a dream, a vision, really. In the case of Trinidad and Tobago, I share a dream with my officers that we will have, by 2022, a public service that has transformed itself so that all the services it delivers are of the highest possible quality and meet the most demanding standards of excellence. I dream of a Trinidad and Tobago and a Caribbean region in which citizens can stay at home and use computers or cellular phones, or at worst, will not have to venture far from their homes to access every service the government has to offer. A region where every citizen enjoys the highest possible quality of service, regardless of race, creed, gender, or geography. A public service that is willing to walk the extra mile to ensure that its clients are satisfied. And most of all, governments that are putting the resources in place so that the citizen is the center of the public service universe, the sun around which our efforts and achievements revolve. Further, I dream that with training and encounters like this program, every country will achieve its goals for transformation and renewal. More, I dream that when I go to Grenada, Barbados, Jamaica, or any of the countries of the region, I would not need a paper document that has to be scrutinized and stamped, that I can access some services that we share within the region as easily as many of us can access these services in our own home country, and that I feel at home in your country as much as I would like you to feel at home in mine. I dream of a network of people who share my dreams and with whom I communicate and share ideas. This is my dream. However, the realization of it is not in my hands alone. If you share this dream, it is up to all of us to work together to create a new Caribbean reality and make our dreams come true. One major challenge is defining and treating as sacrosanct the concept of public interest. We keep saying that we are working in the public interest. We keep spending taxpayers' dollars in the public interest. But what we need to have is a clear sense of what that entails. In my view, we must have a culture that values, recognizes, and rewards public officers who display and portray, who demonstrate and personify the values and virtues of honesty and integrity, fairness, transparency, and conscientiousness, and who add value instead of debasing the integrity of our system. I want to ask you, are we ready for that? Are you prepared to do that? Secondly, you can hold on to power and dole it out sparingly to those who report to you, or you can genuinely empower your staff. You can either keep them on a leash, chained to your every word and need, or unleash the creativity within them, the energy and the entrepreneurship. Yesterday at the opening of the Administrative Professionals Week, I indicated that research shows more and more that innovation in service delivery is taking place with frontline staff, empowered to make timely and quality decisions in order to facilitate innovation in service delivery. Therefore, for frontline staff to be innovative, they must be confident that they have your support and encouragement, especially when they take risk to make customer service better or to help stakeholders to enjoy a better experience in their encounters with the bureaucracy. Alvin Toffler, the futurist, talks in his book, Power Shift, about a major change in the global environment that is also taking place in our workplaces and in many other aspects of our lives. His view is that the old launching pads of power, money, and muscle have given way to mind power. All of us here today are knowledge workers. Knowledge is our stock in trade, and information is the basic currency of every transaction and encounter that we have. What we need to be aware of is that public service renewal requires a power shift. If we want to achieve a citizen-centered society, then we have to expect and engineer a power shift where the needs of the citizens and our other stakeholders are paramount. The power shift is what we need between you and your next line, and between the public service and the citizenry. What helps in the power shift is that information as a resource is shareable. When I give you information, I shall have it. And if you give it to others, you will retain it. There is no loss of power for the public servant. If there is, public service renewal will not work since nobody gives up power willingly. What will emerge is that through sharing information and making access to it easier, everyone will benefit. The public officers and public service leaders can shift as are coming closer together. I will use the example of Trinidad and Tobago, but it is happening in various degrees and varying degrees and speeds in all the countries guarded here today. What we are seeing and helping to create is a convergence of several complementary forces, none of which by itself is able to transform the public service, but taken together have the ability to generate the critical mass that will help us to all succeed. Last year, we started in Trinidad and Tobago what we called the Gold to Diamond Journey, and I know later this week you will be hearing more about our Gold to Diamond Journey. Our country celebrated the golden anniversary of national independence in 2012, like Jamaica. Our public service came into being as a primary manifestation and instrument of independence. We saw those 50 years as the golden platform from which we can launch our public service renewal. We will celebrate our Diamond Jubilee in 2022 and plan to use the 10-year period to put in place a citizen-centric public service that will be geared for all our service needs for the entire 21st century. So we intend to be there long before 2022. The Diamond architecture will facilitate that empowered and innovative organization with opportunities for new careers, for that power shift, and for new cultures. We plan to build on the convergence of 4 key factors which are converging and which together will create the environment for both success and sustainability. The first of these key factors is that citizens are increasingly demanding value for money from government services and knowing that something must be done. They are willing the transformation to happen. The second major impetus for transformation is the growing availability of ubiquity of ICTs. These new technologies, which shrink in space, time, distance, and cost, are the keys to the delivery of the highest quality service in the shortest time at the lowest cost to the mobile phones or homes of citizens, regardless of their location. The third major driver of the transformation process is that public officers are beginning to understand and appreciate that theirs is a profession in which opportunities exist for those who perform at the highest levels. The fourth and most important factor is that the political will exists for transformation. The present administration in Trinidad and Tobago, and I know that other Caribbean governments, most recently Antigua and Barbuda, have laid considerable emphasis on transforming the public service. The convergence of these 4 factors, increasing demand by citizens for value for money, the constantly expanding role of ICTs, the professionalization of the public service, and the political will also need to be managed, harnessed, and harmonized. They bring with them risk and the need for greater accountability. Introducing new technologies, laws, changes in the terms and conditions of employment, and everything else that public service renewal implies would require risk-taking. This is where leadership comes in. This is where the various objectives of the programs come together. At one level, there's a need for responsible governance that is responsive to the needs of the stakeholders. At another level, we need to set the stage and create the opportunities as well as a supportive environment for new leaders to emerge, not just here in Trinidad and Tobago, but also in the entire Caribbean. More than anything else, we need the right people in the right places at the right time to generate both symbiosis and synergy. Symbiosis, in this case, is the relationship between the public service and the various stakeholders. We need to build on their strengths as much as ours. We must be sensitive to their needs and respect their positions. We must try to see the world from their points of view. Otherwise, we cannot be citizen-centered. Synergy is what we are already seeing here in this room, but which we would want to see in the public service of the entire region. We need to produce results that will be greater than the numbers of people here. What all our countries prize and will spend much of the future in achieving is the elusive goal of sustainable development. The demands on the resources, including the skilled human resources, people like yourselves, are considerably more than the supply. Even with the best intentions, most countries cannot keep up with the pace of development and the needs of the citizenry in a world where we are all, as our first Prime Minister, Dr. Eric Williams said, sardines in a sea of sharks. What I want to impress on all of you here today is that in unity, there is strength. There is strength in diversity. The technologies that have converged as ICTs have given us networking as a fundamental fact of life. We too can bind time and space through networking. We can tap the resources and support of other professionals and can even see and talk to them face to face. I strongly support the objective of creating a stronger community of senior leaders in this region. I want all of you here today to treat this program not just as a marketplace of ideas, but as a meeting place of minds. I want you to create in cyberspace, as well as in your own countries, in real time, as well as virtual time, opportunities for sharing the wealth of ideas that you have and will gain from this program. I want you, in other words, to keep in touch with one another and to work together using what you have learned in this and other programs to develop the future leaders of a new and networked Caribbean and the renewed public service that will help to bring it closer together and keep it together. The question is, are you ready, willing, and prepared to do what must be done? Are you prepared to push for governance that is in the best interests of us all? Are you ready to redefine the public interest and identify your roles in it? Are you ready to give up some of your own power to effect the transformation of the public service and the nation at large? Are you ready to make any major dents in the status quo and to take on the new challenges which will change but will never diminish who you are and what you do? My friends, we the people of the Caribbean have survived slavery and indentureship, sea voyages in small and fragile ships through storms and tempests, colonialism and corruption, despair and destruction. We have shown that we can adapt and thrive in foreign soil. This is our own soil and our own people. We owe them all that we are and all that we can be. The question is, are you ready? I pray that God will continue to bless this group of leaders and that you will make the impact. Let today be the first day of this journey. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
For the participants and for our specially invited guests, and I know, Mr. Speaker, that you have a full agenda, but we would be really honored if you could stay to be members of the head table. We would invite you immediately following the vote of thanks to exit via the rear door and make a left, and then the official photographer will instruct you so that we can have the official photograph for this Module 3 hosted by the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And now I call my colleague and friend, Mr.
Initiative, and have been able to convince CARICOM leaders to finally, after all these years, remove all barriers to travel within the region. These leaders had started their journey in 2013, facilitated by CEDA. As they reflected on their journey, they remembered their time in Trinidad and Tobago in overcoming all the challenges that were faced along the road and for keeping this program alive and well. The public service leaders remembered that the program journey took them across the region, and they thanked the regional hosts in Trinidad and Tobago for having made their stay productive and enjoyable. Thank you, Gillian McIntyre, for your warm remarks, and Jackie Sampson for your reflections on the journey so far. The leaders recalled that in this system they had put into action the minister's dream, the minister's cherished dream, for a public service culture, for national cultures, where the values of honesty and integrity, fairness, transparency, and conscientiousness had converged, creating a better reality for our people in a brave new region. Thank you, Minister, for donating your time to us today to challenge us to dream. Further, thank you all the contributors, honored guests, including the Speaker of